Okay, I'm going to start today with a question that might make you feel a little bit guilty. I know it made me feel guilty when I first read this deep dive.
Ooh, starting with guilt. That's a bold strategy.
It's necessary. Okay, look at your to-do list. Or, just think about your average workday. How much of your actual life-changing, legacy-defining work do you get done before 11:00 a.m.?
The 4:11 a.m. If I'm being honest, usually nothing. Maybe I've cleared my inbox, maybe I've had a second coffee, sat in Zoom meeting or two.
Right.
But life-changing work, that usually gets pushed to the afternoon. If it happens at all,
Right. And that is the norm. We ease into the day. We feel productive because we're clearing the decks, right? But I've got this stack of research here, articles, historical case studies, some really interesting biology, and it makes a pretty aggressive claim.
it does.
It says you should aim to complete 100%.
100.
Yeah, literally all of your most important work by 11:00 a.m.
That just sounds impossible, doesn't it?
Yeah. It sounds ridiculous. I mean, I have a boss, I have a commute. Most people can't just shut the world out until noon. Is this just another one of those, hustle culture hacks for people who don't have real jobs?
And that's the natural reaction. But what we're going to unpack today isn't about hustling harder. It's actually about biology and physics.
Mm,
The source material argues that this specific window, from waking until 11:00 a.m.,
yeah.
it dictates the trajectory of your entire life.
So if you miss it,
If you miss it, you don't just lose a few hours, you lose the game.
so the thesis is direction beats effort.
Exactly. Direction beats effort, and timing dictates the outcome. You can work harder than anyone else in the room, but if you're working at 4:00 p.m. or if you're swinging your axe to the wrong wall, you lose.
We've got a lot to cover to prove this. We're going to talk about a brutal patent war in the 1800s, a hypothetical room filled with gold and axes,
And a French astronomer who spent his entire life chasing a ghost planet,
and we'll connect all of that back to the specific neurochemistry of your brain
specifically the prefrontal cortex.
to explain why working hard is often just a complete waste of time. Let's start with the history. Because this story about the telephone, I thought I knew this story. Alexander Graham Bell invented the phone. End of story.
That's the headline. But the real story is so much messier and honestly, much more tragic.
So take us back. 1876.
1876. The world is on the brink of a communication revolution. Every engineer worth their salt is trying to figure out how to transmit the human voice over a wire. And it really comes down to two men, Alexander Graham Bell, who we all know,
Of course.
and a man named Elisha Gray.
Elisha Gray. I'll be honest, before this research, I'd never heard of him.
Most people haven't, and that's the point. But here is the crucial context. Both men had cracked the code.
Yeah.
Both had the design. On the morning of February 14th, 1876, both of them were ready to file the patent.
A dead heat.
A complete dead heat. It was Valentine's Day.
Hmm.
And this is where the story stops being about engineering and starts being about psychology.
Okay, so paint the picture for us. Washington, D.C., February 14th.
It's winter. It's cold. Bell's lawyer. This guy was in what the source calls war mode. He understood that in a patent race, second place is just the first loser.
So he doesn't just show up to the office.
No, he arrives before the doors even open.
I love that image. Just picturing him on the steps, shivering in the D.C. winter, clutching this paperwork like it's a grenade.
Exactly. Stamping his feet to stay warm, checking his pocket watch every 30 seconds. He knows that speed is the only variable that matters right now. The moment those doors swung open, he was at the counter. Paid the fees in cash, slammed the application down.
Done.
His priority one task was done before most of the city had finished breakfast.
Okay, that's Bell's team. Total urgency. What about Gray? Was he running late? Was he stuck in traffic?
No, and that's the tragedy of it. Gray's lawyer was there, but he was relaxed.
Relaxed. On patent day?
Well, I mean, think about it from his perspective. He's a logical man. He knows the patent office is open until 5:00 p.m. He knows that legally, a filing at 4:00 p.m. counts as a filing on February 14th, just like a filing at 9:00 a.m. So why rush?
I mean, that makes sense. If the deadline is 5.0, why stand in the freezing cold at 8:0?
So he took his time. He went through his papers. He probably had a nice lunch, maybe chatted with a colleague. He just strolled into the office in the late afternoon.
And he filed?
He filed, paid cash, same day.
But we know how this ends.
We do. Months later, the patent was awarded to Bell. Gray was furious. He took it to court. He argued, hey, my design is actually better. And interestingly, a lot of historians agree with him. His transmitter design might have been technically superior.
So if he had the better product and he filed on the same day, how did he lose?
It came down to the logbook.
Uh,
The judge called for the daily docket book from that morning. They opened it up to February 14th.
I'm down.
Alexander Graham Bell was entry number 5.
Entry number 5, right at the top.
Elisha Gray,
Let me guess.
entry number 39. That's it. That is the difference. Just 34 lines of ink. That distance on the page separated a billionaire historical icon from a footnote that nobody remembers.
That is just wild to think about. 34 lines of ink. If Gray's lawyer had just skipped lunch.
If he had skipped lunch, we might be saying, I'll give you a gray instead of give you a ring. Who knows?
Okay.
But the takeaway is brutal. In a vacuum, the designs were equal. In reality, timing was the only variable that mattered. Speed wasn't just an advantage, it was everything.
It's such a harsh lesson. You can be smarter, you can have a better product, you can be a nicer person. But if you are entry number 39, you lose.
You lose. It didn't matter whose design was better. It mattered who treated the most important task with the most urgency at the earliest possible moment.
Okay, so that's the timing part of the argument. You have to be first. But the source material pivots here. It says timing is useless if you're applying your energy to the wrong thing.
Right. You could be the first one to the patent office, but if your invention doesn't work, you still lose.
To explain this, the source uses this really vivid mental model. It's a parable about two guys, Trump and Charlie. And we should just say, these are names in the story. Let's treat them as characters in a simulation.
Right. A controlled experiment. 2 identical rooms. In each room, you have a bed, a table where food is delivered daily, and a very sharp axe.
And the goal is simple. Find the gold.
There's gold hidden behind one of the 4 walls. The other 3 walls are solid mountain rock, unbreakable. You have 1 year.
High stakes. 1 year, 4 walls, 1 axe. So let's look at Trump's strategy first. The source calls him the I'll get to it guy.
We all know this strategy. Honestly, most of us live this strategy. Trump wakes up, sees a big breakfast spread on the table, pancakes, eggs, the works, and he eats. He enjoys his morning.
It's nice.
It is nice. But then, naturally, the food coma hits. Digestion takes energy, so he lies down on the bed to scroll on his phone or just relax.
And then the guilt sets in.
Right around 2:00 p.m. We've all felt this. You look at the clock, realize the day is more than half over, and you panic a little. So Trump grabs the axe. But at this point, his biology is working against him.
He's sluggish.
He's digesting, his cortisol is low. He picks a wall at random and starts swinging. But the source describes his energy as half-hearted. He's swinging with wet noodle arms.
And crucially, he hasn't even checked if it's the right wall.
Not at all. He just swings because he feels like he needs to be working. He sweats, he gets tired, he makes a dent in the rock, and he goes to sleep feeling like he put in a hard day's work.
But he failed on 2 fronts. First, he was directionally wrong. He didn't check the wall. Second, his intensity was garbage because he wasted his peak energy on pancakes and lounging.
Exactly. Now, let's look at Charlie. Charlie has what the source calls an algorithm for life.
Charlie wakes up in that room and he does something different.
He ignores the food. He ignores the bed. He recognizes that right now, upon waking, he is in a high IQ, high alert state. He has a full battery.
Step 1, direct.
He doesn't pick up the axe yet. He goes to the first wall and knocks. Rap, rap, rap. He listens. Puts his ear to the stone. He's listening for the reverberation.
He's looking for the hollow ring.
Exactly. He checks the second wall. Solid. Third wall. Solid. Then he gets to the fourth wall. Thud. Thud. A deep, hollow sound. He identifies the target before he ever spends a calorie on swinging.
That is the key. Find the hollow ring first.
And then, step 2, priority execution. Because he's still in that morning peak, he picks up the axe and he unleashes hell on that specific wall. He hits it with 10 times the force Trump ever could. He works until he is completely physically exhausted.
And only then does he eat.
Only then. He earns the rest.
I love this comparison because it really exposes this lie of working hard.
It does. Think about the math here. If Charlie had half the physical strength of Trump, but he hit the right wall, he still wins. He gets the gold. But if Trump had the strength of 10 men, if he was the hardest worker in the world, but he was hitting a solid mountain, he gets nothing.
That's the scary part. You can exhaust yourself, you can burn out, sacrifice your weekends, and still end up with nothing if you're hitting the mountain.
Precisely. Direction beats effort. Every time.
But here's where it gets tricky. Sometimes we think we found the hollow wall. We think we're right. But we're wrong. The source brings up a really fascinating historical example of this.
Yes. Urbain Le Verrier, the French mathematician.
This guy was a genius. He wasn't lazy like Trump in the gold room. He was
Oh,
intense.
he was. Back in the 1840s, astronomers had a problem. The planet Uranus was misbehaving. It wasn't following the orbit that Isaac Newton's laws said it should. It was wobbling.
So Leverrier sits down, no computer, no telescope, just a pen and a stack of paper, and he does the math. He calculates there must be another massive planet out there pulling on Uranus.
He pinpoints the exact coordinates, sends a letter to an observatory in Berlin and says, look here.
And on September 23rd, 1846, they look. And boom, Neptune.
He discovered a planet with nothing but math. It made him the most famous scientist in the world.
But then he tried to do it again.
He noticed Mercury was also wobbling. It had a weird orbit. So logically, he used the same method. He spent years calculating. He predicted another planet, closer to the sun, pulling on Mercury. He even named it Vulcan.
And he spent the rest of his life looking for it.
He died believing it was there. Other astronomers even claimed they saw it. But he was wrong. There was no Vulcan.
So what was causing the wobble?
It wasn't a hidden planet. It was a flaw in the map itself. Newton's laws of gravity weren't perfect. It wasn't until Einstein came along in 1915 with general relativity that we understood Mercury's orbit is affected by the curvature of space-time around the sun.
So Leverrier is the ultimate tragedy here. He had the work ethic of Charlie, he had the urgency of Bell, but he was swinging his axe at a planet that didn't exist.
Exactly. He was entry number one in effort, but his map was wrong. It proves you can be a genius and still waste your life if your direction is flawed.
We see this in business all the time. The source mentions Kodak and Blockbuster.
Classic examples. Kodak had the money. They had the smartest engineers. In fact, they invented the digital camera. But leadership was focused on the film wall. They kept swinging at the film wall because that's where they had always found gold before.
But the gold had moved.
The gold had moved to digital. Because they refused to change direction, they went bankrupt. Same with Blockbuster. They saw Netflix coming, but they kept swinging at the physical rental wall.
It really drives home the point that being busy is not the same as being effective. You can be frantically busy swinging at the wrong wall.
Which brings us back to the biology. Why is 11:00 a.m. the magic number? Why can't we just find the right direction at 4:40 p.m.?
Yeah, let's get into the science. Because usually when I hear cortisol, I think stress. I think heart attacks. The source says we need to rebrand it.
We do. We think of cortisol as the bad guy. But biologically, in the morning, cortisol is your alertness hormone. When you wake up, your body releases this cocktail of cortisol and dopamine.
Okay, so it wakes you up.
Yeah.
But it's more than just not being sleepy, right?
Much more. This isn't just about caffeine-level jitters. This combination specifically targets the prefrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain responsible for executive function.
Executive function. So planning, complex problem solving, logic.
Exactly. The ability to simulate the future, the ability to say, if I do X, then Y will happen. That is what Leverrier used to find Neptune. That is what Bell used to organize his patent filing. That brain power is expensive, biologically speaking.
And the fuel runs out.
It drains fast. The source uses the battery analogy. Every decision you make, what to wear, what to eat, replying to that email, scrolling through Instagram drains that executive function battery.
So by 2:00 p.m.
By 2:00 p.m., the cortisol has dropped. The dopamine is lower. Your battery's at maybe 20%. You might still be awake because you had coffee at lunch,
Right.
but your ability to do deep, abstract, strategic thinking, it's gone.
So if you spend your morning, your peak cortical hours answering low-level emails or sitting in a status meeting,
You are taking your Ferrari engine and using it to tow a manure cart. It's a total waste of resources.
and by the time you get to the big project in the afternoon, you're swinging the axe with those wet noodle arms.
That's why the rule is 11:00. You
Mhm.
have to identify your priority one task, the thing that changes your life in 2 to 3 years, and you have to attack it while your brain is actually capable of winning.
Okay, but this is where I get stuck. And I think a lot of listeners get stuck here too. It's easy to say prioritize, but in the moment, everything feels important. The email from the boss feels important. The text from the spouse feels important.
That's the urgency trap. And to illustrate the cost of falling into that trap, the source shares a really heartbreaking personal story. Let's talk about the water filter friend.
Yeah, this one hit me hard.
So the author has a friend who runs a small shop selling water filters. It's a decent business, pays the bills, but it keeps him incredibly busy. He's always on the phone, always dealing with customers.
And meanwhile, his family owns this ancestral property in a village.
Right. Valuable land. But there was a legal issue with it. Some squatters, a dispute, standard property stuff. But It required attention. It required him to go there, meet with lawyers, maybe fight a bit.
But he was too busy selling water filters.
He was too busy earning pennies. So when a guy from the village approached him and said, look, this is a headache. Sign this power of attorney. I'll handle the legal stuff and give you some cash right now. He took the deal.
He signed away the land.
Signed it away without even visiting the site. He saved himself the time so he could get back to his shop.
And how much did he lose?
The source estimates that the wealth that property could have created, generational wealth, land that could support his children, was 100 times what his water filter shop will ever make in his entire lifetime.
Ouch.
He stepped over a pot of gold to pick up a few loose coins. The land was the hollow wall. The shop was the solid mountain. But because the shop was loud and urgent, he gave it his best energy.
That is the definition of being directionally wrong. He was entry number 39 in his own life.
He was. And it's tragic because he wasn't lazy. He was working hard, but he was working on the wrong thing.
On the flip side, the source author shares his own story, and this is a massive turnaround.
It is. He says he finished 12th grade with 50% marks. He was not a standout student, but he decided to adopt the Charlie system.
What did that look like for him?
Wake up at 6 a.m., write down priorities, execute until he dropped. No phone, no distractions. By doing this for 5 years, he cracked 3 government jobs.
And these weren't just any jobs. The source calls them Class 1 gazetted officer positions. For our global listeners, explain what that means.
Yeah. In the Commonwealth system, a gazetted officer is a huge deal. We're talking about top-tier civil service. These are roles where your signature has legal weight. People spend a decade studying for these exams and fail. It's the equivalent of passing the bar exam or getting into a top medical residency.
And you got 2 of them.
He got 2. And unlike the water filter friend, he resolved a 40-year-old property dispute for his family. He secured the gold.
And he claims this wasn't because he was smarter.
No. He says explicitly, none of this happened because he worked harder in a general sense. It happened because he was directionally correct and he front-loaded the effort. He used his cortisol to build an empire, not to scroll social media.
It's compelling. But I want to go back to the listener, because we promised them a takeaway. How do we actually apply this? We can't all quit our jobs to become gazetted officers or gold miners.
True. But the principle is about resource allocation. Even if you have a boss, even if you have meetings, you have some agency over your morning.
It's about guarding that battery.
Step 1, wake up and ignore the food. For us, the food is the phone, is the news, is the easy dopamine. Don't touch it. Step 2, identify the direction. Ask yourself, what is the one thing that if I finished it today would actually matter in a year?
And then step 3.
Hit that thing with everything you have.
Before 11:00 a.m.
Before 11:00 a.m. Even if you only get 60 minutes of deep work, 60 minutes of Charlie energy on the right wall is worth 8 hours of Trump energy on the wrong one.
And the source makes a really provocative point here about how few of these decisions we actually get.
Yes, this is the thought that keeps me up at night. The source argues that in a whole lifetime, there are maybe 4 or 5 decisions or tasks that truly move the needle.
4 or 5. That's it?
That's it. Buying the right house, marrying the right person, choosing the right career path, solving the ancestral land dispute. Everything else is just noise.
And most of us are too busy answering emails to even notice when those 4 or 5 moments arrive.
We are swinging at the mountain. We are so busy feeling productive that we miss the opportunity to be effective.
So my challenge to you, the listener, is this. Are you being entry number 39 in your own life? Are you letting the day dictate your actions, arriving late to the patent office of your own potential because you stopped for lunch?
Or are you going to find that hollow ring tomorrow morning?
Tomorrow morning, before 11:11 a.m., try it. Ignore the phone. Ignore the email. Find the wall that rings hollow and swing the axe while you still have the strength.
You might just find the gold.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Go file that patent. We'll see you next time.